Stevenage and for Newport. But Fraser had his career cut short due to a heart condition. He had to retire at the tender age of 28. And Fraser has been on to us here at talkSPORT in the past. He's a man who doesn't like to be standing still, nor do any of us. And now I'm delighted to hear that Fraser has become a project. It's a new podcast series called Football Journeys, and it details, if you like, the untold stories of the beautiful game. It examines the pain, the graft, the rejection that people like Fraser may or may not experience along the way. The series highlights players who have been through the mill, they've lived through the struggles, and they've come out the other end of it to tell their own story. And series 1 of this focuses on the academy journey at the Premier League champions Liverpool. And this was a group of players, remember, who came so close to lifting the title. It's absolutely intriguing. Let's have a taste of it.
Football Journeys is a new podcast, and in this series we tell the stories of forgotten Liverpool youth team players. We discuss the joy,
freaking out scoring a 35-yard goal, do you know what I mean?
the pain of rejection.
And when you go from that kid who's captain Liverpool, captain England, to no one in the league wanting you, it's like, hold on, what?
The pressure.
Times like that, I think like people don't want to speak to people at clubs because they feel like this information is going to go back to them and they're going to think he's not in the right mental state to be playing football.
And other extraordinary stories along the way.
Going from May 2015 to training with Suarez to be, under arrest for suspicion of murder in October in 2017.
In this series, we meet with the class of 2013-14 who have now all left Liverpool, and we find out where their football journey has taken them. This is Football Journeys.
Wow, I tell you what, I'll listen to that, especially after hearing that. Fraser Franks, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. This sounds great. He sounded very moody there, Bob, with his voice, didn't he?
He did.
You're not going to miss that.
That's actually not me doing it. That's actually he's actually a lad called Harley who used to be in a band called the Rizzle Kicks.
I thought it was you. Right.
That's Harley. That's a favour that we called in, and he's got a bit more of a dramatic voice than I do. So
wow. Okay, well, Football Journeys, the podcast. Why did you want to get into this area?
I'm in a business with a guy called Matt Hemsworth, who is a media lawyer, and he's dealt with for 20 years, usually on the end when things go wrong at football clubs. Has worked with a number of Premier League football clubs, and yeah, he usually gets a phone call when something's gone wrong, things go to the papers, and people's reputations get in tatters.
Yeah.
And my experience coming through the journey as a footballer and some of the other stuff that I'm doing at the minute, we came together. It was actually Chelsea that put us together. I came through the academy there, and Matt was working on a project with Chelsea. My academy coach was actually Jason Cundy, who works here. So,
oh yeah,
you can probably tell why I ended up in League Two and not the Premier League. But he was a top coach. But no, we come together and we work with a lot of clubs and deal with the well-being of players. Try and deal with as many off-field problems and issues as we can to try and help the lads on the pitch, but also to help them transition away from football. And yeah, we kept seeing a common thread, and we wanted to get a message out there. And yeah, we wanted to work with Liverpool, and we've looked at the academy journey and players that come through and don't quite make it to Liverpool's, regulars and starters around the world.
Right.
But go through that process and get so close to it.
I know, Fraser, you as always, you've gone after some big names, and you've got some. I mean, you've got the likes of Conor Cody in there. Jimmy Carragher features in the podcast series. Can we talk about one? I'm intrigued by it. The first episode came out yesterday, right? Yeah. It focuses on Jordan Rossiter. Tell me about Jordan's journey. Did he not have a spell up at Rangers at one stage?
Yeah, he only left Rangers in the summer, just gone. So he was one. I think his name, a lot of it is pricked up when we had him on, because he was a name that came out when he was 16 that he was tipped by everyone to be the next Steven Gerrard. We've dug through old tweets, and you've got Robbie Fowler putting it out there. And he made his debut for Liverpool when he was 17, scored at Anfield, but has suffered massively with injuries. Got to 19 at Liverpool, and he actually turned down a deal because he had the likes of Henderson, Milner, Lallana, Lucas in front of him, and he thought, you know what, I need to go and play regularly. And he could then go overseas for a compensation fee. So he was linked with Barcelona, Inter Milan, all these clubs around Europe.
He was that good.
He was that good.
Yeah.
But he took a deal at Rangers, 4-year deal, and it didn't work out well for him. He went there, he started off really well, but as I said, he struggled massively with injuries the last 3 or 4 years. He's now 23, 24, and he's back. He's signed permanently with Fleetwood Town, and he's tipped for big things to come, and hopefully he can bounce back and get back up the leagues.
So he's with Joey Barton now in Fleetwood, trying to make a go of it.
Yeah. So he was teammates with Joey Barton at Rangers, and he obviously saw how good he was. So
this is intriguing, Bob. It's how these guys like Jordan and others mentally cope with what actually happens.
It's
to
something
them
we've
on
talked
their
about
journey.
a lot on this program.
Yeah,
is that for every footballer that makes it, there are thousands.
Yeah.
That literally don't. If you like I do, you got your football programs at home. Go up and have a look at them, because in the back they'll have the under-18s or the youth team. Have a look at them and see how many of those names you recognise.
Yeah.
It'll be very, very few, because there's a cut-off point, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know this. You get there. You're the best. You're the best in your school, of course you are, and then you're the best in your town, of course you are, and then you're the best in your county, and then you get up to a big club, and then suddenly you're not the best anymore.
It's a good point that Bob makes, Martin. I mean, with due respect to you, Martin, we can't all be Martin Keown. I mean, these guys, you'll be aware of so many stories like Jordan Rossiter and others. There's one, Darius Waldron, have I got the name right?
Yeah.
Tell me, before Martin comes in, tell me the story there.
Yeah, so we didn't just want to focus on the ones that are obviously still playing and have made careers for themselves, but some that have drifted away completely, and some of the processes that go into academy football. And one of them is Darius he was a 12-year-old lad who was living in Moss Side in horrific conditions, if I'm honest. Had a single mum, but she suffered a lot with alcohol abuse. But Liverpool took a chance at him and signed him on. And something that's quite untapped as well is people don't understand that probably 85% of lads that go into a youth team are in digs. So that's literally another family fostering that kid that's what it is for 2 years.
Sure.
And it plays a massive part of their scholarship. And he got put into the right family and completely turned his life around for that period. So got put with a lovely family. He's got their names tattooed on his wrist because they mean that so much to him. But he's had it rough. He spent 10 months in prison and has come out. And now through this as well, we want to try and get him into clubs and help him. He's in a great place at the minute, and he's actually back playing semi-professionally.
He's playing again.
He's back playing. Yeah, so he's found his.
That's amazing, Bob.
Found his love for the game again, and he's on a great path. And we're going to get him into academies to tell his story, because
brilliant.
He can offer so much to young players.
After doing 10 months inside.
Yeah,
it's incredible, Martin, isn't it?
Well, I mean, players lose their way, don't they? And then there's the rejection. Players get told they're not good enough. It's funny because I look back, I'm going to say a name here of a person I've not seen since the day he was released by Arsenal Football Club. His name was Nicky Beaumont. He was in digs with me in London. We're both away from home. It's tough, I was 15 years of age in London. And we were almost like, it became like a brother almost. And then the club got rid of him. They got rid of it, and I thought, they ain't doing that to me. That I'm going to have to work harder. I'm going to have to, I need to be lucky as well. And I'll be the one that dictates when I leave this football. It gives you that toughness, but people don't see that. Now, he came down from Yorkshire, incredible athlete, the best at the area that he was in, and he was doing the best at everything until that age. And that rejection, he was a tough character, and I'm assuming he survived it. But they
you
do
don't know
need
where
help.
he is now. You don't know where he is now.
No idea. I'd love actually.
Fraser, that's maybe a topic for you. Exactly.
I'd love if he got in touch.
It's something that we were always fascinated with was these names that pop up years ago, and you're like, "God, what happened to him? Where's he now?" And
Terry Lee, there was a player at Arsenal. Terry, fantastic player.
But didn't make it.
Didn't know Gary Campbell, not Kevin Gary. It was the youth team player that everyone talked about would go on and be the star. He's like Graham Ricks.
So the guy you mentioned there, Nicky Beaumont, was it?
Nicky Beaumont.
Nicky Beaumont.
Yeah. And
would that be something you would take up now, Fraser? Like a name like Nicky Beaumont, like he was with Martin, but got released. What happened to him? Where is he? You'd be interested, maybe try and find out where he is.
Yeah, there's definitely. We want to. These kind of things I'm always fascinated with, because people like him would have dedicated his life to football for a certain amount of time, and then while other people are going off to college or university and doing things, you haven't done that. So you go from football, and then what is it you do next? So that's always something I'm fascinated with. And even this morning I look, and Andros Townsend's on the show.
Yeah.
And he gets slated on Twitter of people saying he needs to focus on football. And I'm like, what does that actually look like? His other teammates are probably sitting at home playing PlayStation. He's actually going out there and trying to set himself up for after his career. And it's something we're trying to do in our role now, is try and get players to think like that.
How do the former players, current players, get in touch with you? You've got details. So, I mean, I have a son who is had desperately unlucky with injuries.
Yeah.
And you see what he's going through, will not take a no for an answer, wants to strive, keep going.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it might be easier to share these things with other people that have got the same problem.
Martin, what a good point. Your son, Martin's former colleague in the digs at Arsenal, Nicky Bowman. Let's put out, Fraser, how guys like that can get in touch with you. We'll do that the other side of this break.
Jim White on talkSPORT with Wix Trade Pro. Get 10% off your favourite workwear brands like Scruffs and Stanley with Wix Trade Pro.
I'm delighted to say a good friend of our show here, Fraser Franks, formerly of Luton Stevenage, Newport defender, is with us. Fraser's got a fascinating podcast on the go, Football Journeys, basically detailing the untold stories that examine the pain, the graft, rejection along the way that can happen in the game of football and the lessons that can be learnt for those who experience failure in sport. Martin, you were engaging with Fraser just before the break. We're up against time a bit at the moment. You were telling us a story about Nicky Bowman, who you shared digs with when you were kids. Nicky disappeared. We'll try and find out where Nicky is. Fraser might put his mind to that. But you're also telling us that your son gave it his best shot, but injury prevailed in his career.
We're still trying to get back. And you know, it's almost a bit like being on if you imagine being out at sea on a boat when you're at a football club, and if you fall overboard, you can't get back on board at the moment. But where are the football clubs? They're all in trouble financially, and you've got your own situation that are, with injuries, and then you've got to convince people that you're back. You've got to get fit somewhere. So we've got all that ahead of us. Hopefully that now we can get some good luck.
Yes,
but it is very, very tough for these players when they're at such a young club. They go to with that dream. We've been talking about Ozil, haven't we? Saying today and about. When you see the other side of the coin, for those people just love to be able to give an opportunity to play, and the door was shut in their face. Yeah,
that's a great point. We've been talking about Jordan Rossiter, one-time Liverpool and Rangers, now at Fleetwood, trying to make a go of it after injury. You were talking at Spurs, is that right? Spurs Academy?
Yeah, we had a talk
by Zoom.
Yeah, it was a strange one yesterday actually, because they usually come on one by one on their computers, but they were training yesterday, so their camera come on. It was a big projection of 30 lads sat in a big hall, and we did a talk yesterday on we do different topics, but yesterday was about dealing with social media. A lot of these lads are going to get exposure in the next few years of social media, and even just by being tagged in a tweet this morning, the abuse people can chuck on social media through, you'll note yourself on talkSPORT. And,
sure, we get it all the time.
and players and stuff. But
you ignore the cowards, Fraser.
Course,
I mean, that's got to be the message. The ones that dish out social abuse, laugh at it, move on.
100%.
I mean, they're just cowardly. They would never say it to your face. But the two examples that we spoke about there, Nicky Bowman, I would have thought, not that I'm trying to be involving myself with your podcast, which I would happily do, but would be perfect subject matter. Martin's son, who would love to get involved in the game through no fault of his own. Injury. Again, perfect subject matter.
Yeah,
how do they cope with it?
Different. We're always on the lookout for different people, and we will be in the upcoming series. Hopefully, if we can keep going. But one of the main audiences we wanted to reach were parents of lads. My kid's going to be the next Trent Alexander-Arnold, and that is 0.01%. And if you look at some of the obstacles that Trent's probably had to go through to get to where he is, we want to highlight that as well. But also, these 8 lads that we're speaking to, that's the more likely journey that your kid will have if they're lucky, because 3 or 4 of these lads are still professional footballers. But the amount that drop out the game, and if you dedicate your life to... We spoke to Jamie Carragher, his boy was at Liverpool and got released and is now at Wigan. But he said parents should treat the academy system like private school. He said let the kid dream and think that they're going to, let him have all the dreams in the world and have that ambition to be a first team player. But as a parent, treat it like private school. Your kid's going to the best facility, getting the best coaching, it's keeping them off the streets, they're getting a focus, and then when they get to 16 or 18, they're ready for the real world or their real career. Whether that means, he said, for his son, it's dropping down to Wigan and hopefully making it as a pro, but if not, you've learnt life skills for an academy that can set you up elsewhere.
I think though, Fraser, there's a balance. I mean, I get asked the question, Jim, a lot by prospective parents of kids who are joining football clubs, and there's always that pressure, isn't there? They want him once a week, now it's twice, now it's 3 times. What should we do? And I always say, look, protect his education, because if the player is good enough, the club will be still there at the end of all of this.
Yeah.
And they sometimes take on so much, some of these parents, driving ridiculous distances backwards and forwards, and it's disruptive for other members of the family. And the kid is on a pedestal within his own family. So it's difficult, the sort of person that you're creating, that you want to be a top professional footballer in the future. So I should do it. Yes, of course, follow the dream, but keep a right balance. My son, Niall, in fairness to Niall, he did 3 A-levels. You know, he carried on and did 3 A-levels while he was... It was almost impossible for him, the workload, but he's come away now with something else.
That's another thing that we push massively, and probably, as I said before, you try and get a young player to do it, and they say, no, I just want to focus on my football. But what does that actually look like? You finish at 2, then you have 8 or 9 hours before you go to bed, and you're sitting there playing PlayStation or watching a film. So one good thing that's happened for us this week is an example that we can use is Robert Lewandowski has completed a master's degree. So if he can be the best player in the world this season, score everything, win everything, he's a dad also, and he can still do this.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't you? So it's a great example to use for
Fraser,
us.
I tell you what, Bob, this is what we like doing in this show. We'll bend and flex a bit. So many people are getting in touch this lunchtime on this topic. You okay for another part, Fraser?
Yeah,
join us, stay with us the other side of 12 o'clock. And Stevie Murray, I remember you, Stevie Murray, a fella, I'll get through this, bear with me. Stevie's messaged in here. Jim, you'll remember me, Stevie Murray. I was a professional football player with Kilmarnock. Really great, you get Fraser there bringing up guys who didn't quite go on to fulfil their potential. I'm now a courier at the tender age of 37. My career ended. I was totally lost. I didn't have that college university behind me to help me get into a new career. So this kind of educational help that Fraser's talking about, it should be readily available. Jim, you do remember me. I do, Stevie. I was the diminutive left winger one day. You were hosting a game on Sky, and I was playing in it. Stevie, I remember it, mate. You left your number. We'll maybe try and give you a call. We'll talk more about that. And funnily enough, Fraser, on Drive this afternoon, Jack Wilshere, now released by West Ham, they paid up his career and looking for a career and looking for another club. Another player who had all the world at his feet and now is determined still to make his mark in the game. Jack Wilshere is going to be live on Drive later on with Andy Goldstein and Darren Bent. Fraser Frank is live with us and will continue to be so right here on talkSPORT.